Okay, YouTubers, I have some thoughts on several things that are trending issues in some circles. One, Nibiru. This Planet X, now called Planet 9, which is the old nemesis theory of a huge object in the Oort cloud flinging stuff our way now and then. Called Planet 9. Now Pluto's been demoted to a planetoid or something, not a planet anymore. And it was first discovered by Harrington, noticing that Neptune and Uranus orbits were pulled downward. This doesn't sound like the normal excuse of, well, they had to recalculate the mass and they weren't in their correct position in the orbits. Well, that would be like progression around the ecliptic not being dislocated below it. So whatever it is, it could be some rogue thing passing by and a straight line never coming into the inner solar system, or it could be on a huge orbit that goes under the solar system and then up around above it, never comes into the inner solar system. The tendency to ascribe biblical disasters to natural events, and some Christians have taken this up. Originally it was an atheist or paganistic way of writing God out of the Bible. It really, this does not do God honor, and it certainly doesn't fit the Exodus stuff, which didn't happen outside of Egypt. Joshua's long day story has been repeated in other accounts, indicate there's something like that happened on that side of the world, and there on the other side of the world there are accounts of a long night which would match that. So something happened, but it wouldn't be anything like, Nibiru is something else. So that would cause far more disruption than a mere stopping rotation for a while. That's not exactly a mere issue. In fact, to do that without causing horrific air-driven catastrophes, that probably knocked both sides of that war of Joshua's off their feet. Couldn't have been done except by God. So, Nibiru sightings that are reported, photographed, and so on, aside from sundogs, I really think that this Nibiru thing is being driven, whether knowingly or by pushing out telepathic messages to promote emotional bias to accept the idea. I think all those things that are being seen are giant spaceships that are disguising themselves by hanging out near the sun in terms of our line of vision. This is an old game from World War II. They've been used in World War I, where a pilot would try to attack from the direction of the sun so that the target pilot would not see him coming until hopefully it was too late. And decades ago, flying saucers were reported disguising themselves as stars. So, I think what got is huge motherships and not always competently cloaking themselves. Google Maps and some other satellite photography has caught some very strange stuff. It looks like this. So I think we can write off Nibiru as anything but a passing incident that might create a few earthquakes more than you would normally expect. 2. Forget global warming. The Antarctic cores show that there are warming phases that precede ice ages. These seem to be tied to solar cycles. The possibility of a Carrington event, EMP, taking down the grid because of a solar X-class flare turning into coronal mass ejection that hits us, is, thank God, less and less ongoingly because the sun is less active. Though of course something might happen. The Ice Age Now, all one word, .info, can give you more information. Of course, they take the evolutionary approach, figure there was leaps created by these conditions and magnetic reversals and whatnot, but another thing is that 3, Sitchin was a flat out lie. There's no book of Enki, there's no nothing. He invented tablets that don't exist. He does not translate Sumerian, where he does deal with things that are known to exist correctly. He uses the words wrong, as an online dictionary can show you. The word Nibiru just means eunuch or eunuch servant. In the legend, it was some false god created this thing for some lazy false goddess to help her with her housework or whatever. Sitchin is wrong, all one word, .org, by Michael Heiser, goes into details. Heiser used to believe him. I think, okay, this whole thing about the Anunnaki and all of that stuff, of course, a lot of legends, a lot of false gods track out as historical individuals who were deified. There's a whole bunch of confusion and mishmash of stuff, but the idea that they created us is just really off the wall. It's far more likely that, well, for one thing, Nibiru is, some either gigantic planet or a brown dwarf is not going to be capable of supporting life. Ditto anything circulating around it. There won't be enough heat from it. If anything circulating around it supports life because of some sort of electrical conditions that would produce heat, it would be, microbial, algae, stuff like that. Mining or other bases upon such don't count. These didn't originate there. So, you're not going to have an arrival of such things. That doesn't rule out some deception ploy being made. 3. I have never understood why the discovery of alien life, intelligent or otherwise, would throw Christianity in specifically, and religion in general, into a mess. In the 1800s, when Percival Lowell was talking about possible life on Mars, the reaction of the Christians then was to prepare to send missionaries to Mars. There have been weird speculations about this, about what if there's how we deal with this, if there's some non-fallen race out there that doesn't need saving. Well, if they don't need saving, what they don't need saving from is not being in a relationship with God. And if they're not out of relationship with God, then they would honor Jesus as the rightful king of all the universe. And if they don't, then something's wrong. It is far more likely that all life originated here on Earth, including especially intelligent life, was taken elsewhere. That the aliens we see now are the result of genetic engineering on humans with the knowledge help of the fallen angels recorded in Genesis 6. Now, what a lot of people who are obsessed with bloodlines and literal parentage ignore is that the social relationships and putative parentage count just as much in the Bible in many primitive societies as blood relationships do. And so the children that were born by these women to the angels is most likely not actually the real children of the angels. Genesis says that there were giants on the earth in those days and after, when the sons of God did this and that. Now, that means you got anomalous large people to begin with. Military and social leaders are going to want to use them as super soldiers, etc. They're going to want more. The earth is full of violence, and all life, all flesh is corrupted its way or been corrupted, it says in Genesis. This is why God brought the flood, not because of, specifically because of attempting to contaminate the genetic lineage so that the Messiah couldn't be born. It's nonsense. It says that Noah was perfect in his generations. Well, he was 600 years old when the flood came. How many generations do you think have been born in his time? And furthermore, it's only Noah that's described this way, not his sons. Now, Romans refers to the whole creation waiting for the second coming. The manifestation of the sons of God, that would be the saints coming back with Jesus. Revelation 5:13 shows creatures of all manner, even in the sea, like sea slugs and stuff, praising God. If they're worshiping God, they're praising God, they're in some relationship with Him. The whole universe is going to be renewed and restored and overhauled sometime after the second coming. So, new heavens, new earth, and then the new Jerusalem comes down in the last chapter or couple chapters of Revelation. So, Jesus, his death and his incarnation, his death and his resurrection, his validity as King and a Savior lies in his divinity. His capacity to do the death and resurrection lies in his humanity he took on, and still has, and always will have. Rose physically from the dead, never to die again. Now, glorified physical body is still a physical body. Immortal, indestructible, but it's still physical. And it's still continuity, in his case, immediate continuity, not just recreated, but immediate continuity of the body that died. This was specifically for mankind, but also for any fallen flesh creature, for the whole universe. So, the presence of non-human blood in a human does not render it outside of the new covenant unsavable. And there could be the presence of non-human blood in the Messiah, if it was there, would not render him incapacitated to be Messiah. The whole there's notions about supposedly spirit is inherited through sort of Traducianism thought, which Traducianism is taken for granted as the basis for declaring that Aaronic priesthood is inferior to Melchizedekian in Hebrews, where it talks about Levi paid tithes to Melchizedek because he did so in Abraham, because he was still in Abraham's loins when Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek. And Traducianism holds that the soul stuff is inherited along with the physical stuff, because the soul is more fluid and more changeable and more modifiable than the physical. But the soul is the life of the body, and God breathed the breath of life into Adam, and he became a living soul. They don't have souls, we are souls. So then this notion that the spirit is inherited on the male line, there's absolutely no biblical basis for this whatsoever. They jump to conclusion because of patrilineal naming, which isn't even uniform throughout the world now, and was gradually developed to be normative over thousands of years. In Genesis, it talks about a man leaves his parents and cleaves to his woman, and the two become one flesh. And this is, when you look at it, sort of gynelocal. That is, he's moving in with her. When Eve gave birth to Cain, she said, and this begins with Adam knew his wife Eve, and she begot Cain. Okay. This shows that Cain's history begins at conception, and that conception was Adam and Eve, not anything like he was some hybrid of Satan and Eve. She said, I have begotten a man from, or with the help of the Lord. And this in the Hebrew text is with the help of Yahweh. Okay? This is not like these serpent seed people say, the word Lord, Baal, the Canaanite word. The Hebrew word for Lord is Adonai, but it's very specific, Yahweh, or more likely Yah. The full Yahweh form of the name apparently was revealed to Moses, though anachronistically is present as, I think, Seth or Enosh, I think was his son, began calling on the name of Yahweh, or one variant way of interpreting that is that people started calling themselves after Yahweh's name, eponymous name, like a Elijah or Elijah means, let's say you have some name that translates out as God is my strength, or Yahweh is glorified, or something like that. What you have here, she says, okay, somebody pointed out that the word begot in Hebrew is the same for male siring someone, or for a woman giving birth, or being the mother of someone, and so there's no basis for this patrilineal only inheritance. Creatures, the breath of life which makes you a living soul is ascribed to all these creatures besides humans who died in the flood. It said all that had the breath of life, and in it, and it lists all these creatures and every man, and all that had the breath of life in them. Well, either that includes all of them, or on that basis, if it's only limited to man, then it is that's saying that all men who had the breath of life died, which means those who didn't have the breath of life didn't die, which doesn't make sense. And having the breath of life makes you a living soul. So all creatures are souls. We're all just different kinds of souls. A hybrid creature of a hybrid soul. There is definitely a demonic component to this UFO thing. How much is technology of a very strange sort, and how much is paranormal is anyone's guess. In another video, I discussed this more in depth. It is highly likely that some of the entities are in fact demons that manage to be fairly physical with the help of bodies they've built up, ethereal bodies that they've rendered more solid, built up by using materials from mutilated cattle and other creatures' biological materials. But there are enough indications of just, some things that seem to be some sort of biological, cyborg robot sort of thing, and other things that seem to be full-on physical creatures. It's the sort of thing you'd expect if you had some culture that was representative of pre-flood culture, which is bad news in itself. And then, if their technology puts them into other dimensions, well, right there, that those other dimensions are where the angels fall and unfall and operate a lot. primarily live. So that puts him in range of trouble. So anyway, there is, somebody had the crazy idea that for Jesus to be Savior of anything, he'd have to be incarnated several times in different worlds as different, Jews as different Christs for different races and other worlds. That's ridiculous. He died for all creation. And rose from the dead, never to die again. And this is also premised on the idea of the kinsman redeemer. Well, kinsman redeemer, I don't think you find this in the New Testament, and even if you do, it's just one of many analogies, and this is yanked out of something in the Old Testament which really is not relevant at all. It was part of the Levitical thing, which is barely tolerated by God, permitted only if the brothers or half-brothers or first cousins had been living together at the time of the woman's death, and she was the pursuer. The man was allowed to say no. It is more of a picture. It is not really appropriate to speak in these terms. Redemption also can be done two ways: by purchasing, or by just barging in and seizing the captive back out of slavery. Speculations in early times about the redemption being paid to the devil is, of course, ridiculous. It was rejected by the early fathers. It was paid to the Father in heaven, who then, since the person was now bought back from his wrath and on his turf, they now belong to Jesus, who could legally take them back from the devil. Also, Jesus legally has power over everything all the time anyway. The devil has no real legal power. A lot of people overrate this legal power thing. So the hyper-charismatics are talking about Jesus going into hell and suffering. That's bullshit. Jesus went into hell, yeah, both in the nice realms of the dead, the bad realms of the dead. He beat up the devil, crippled him considerably. It's not a permanent total binding like the Roman Catholics and the Orthodox think, because if that were the case, then there wouldn't be any cases of possession, there wouldn't be any tempting of the believers, there wouldn't be any of that stuff. But it is a serious crippling.